the most serious stuff that I work with. And this is also the most common stuff that I work with clients. I've been doing this sort of regression work for 10 years, and the reason I am studying this quite carefully and have been for a long time is not really by choice, it's more by being shown through my clients the statistics of what is causing the biggest problems in this country and globally. But because I'm here, it's what I'm noticing in this country. And one of the biggest problems I see is the issues that we cause each other in our past, usually assault or sexual assault. I'm going to say that the biggest emotional issue in our country comes from sexual assault, because the ramifications of this in the human body are massive, long-term, and epigenetic. So, I've talked to therapists who speculate that around 75% of women in this country have suffered from some kind of sexual assault. And when you understand the effect on the female body, in particular, this is same for males and sexual assault as well, which is a whole other realm of inquiry, which I've gotten into a little bit. But on the female body, the results are massive. And this sort of attitude towards the female body is completely, essentially promoted in our society in a whole lot of different ways. And this is really serious information. What I'm going to talk about tonight is probably going to make you feel uncomfortable. And if it doesn't, awesome. And a lot of this is getting into what makes us uncomfortable and why. So there's two reasons we'll get uncomfortable, really. Associating ourselves to the information, what's actually happened to you potentially and what I'm talking about, or the fact that we're suffering from cultural taboos around what we're comfortable talking about and sharing and expressing. So there's a whole lot of taboos that basically tell us to feel uncomfortable, or shut down, or feel anxious or shameful when we talk about certain things. Like you would talk about colonic irrigation with grandma, that sort of thing. So, if you do, cool, great, good on you, good on grandma. So, but that's what I'm getting at, because we have these taboos in our genetics, right? So what would our parents be comfortable talking about? What would grandparents be comfortable talking about? This kind of affects us, all right? There's a huge amount of content tonight, so I'm going to get straight into it. So, the global male vulnerability deficit. This is, I believe, the biggest cause of war, political issues, and separation and environmental catastrophe on the planet. Now, there's a really interesting thing going on here when it comes to male vulnerability. The reason I'm going to talk about global war and environmental collapse essentially comes from the idea that men are not feeling what's going on. They're not in touch with what's actually happening on the planet, because we come from a culture and society where we're conditioned to shut down our hearts and not feel vulnerable. Okay? And when we shut down this part of our body, we can disconnect from the environment, from people, from the planet, and from other countries, all this sort of thing, and create the separation, because we're not feeling into the reality of it or feeling the oneness with other people or with the planet. So, there's a really good analogy I like to use. There's a place called the Rockefeller Grove in the Redwoods in California. And I got in there and I slept there with a friend. We camped and we got there at night time, and I could kind of see the trees. I was like, wow, I've never been to the Redwoods. And we camped. And in the morning I got out of the tent and I was just like, in this grove, that's ancient, that got speared, it wasn't logged. And I'm walking around going, this is so familiar, this is so amazing, what's going on? And then my friend was like, yeah, this is where they filmed all the Ewok scenes in Star Wars. And I was like, oh, cool. So it was really familiar, that's where they filmed a lot of that stuff. And then I walked around and I found this plaque, and it said that the grove was called the Rockefeller Grove because a whole bunch of women who were the wives of the men who would work as lumberjacks and work in the sawmills and work in the logging industry in that area, and they got together and went, you know what, this whole forest is getting cut down. We need to do something about it. So they petitioned all these different people in politics to try and purchase that bit of land off the logging company so it would be saved. Now this is a group of women, right? So all the men are able to, as much as they can, shut down their emotions and shut down their bodies so they can chop down these beautiful trees and not feel too much. Because if you were feeling too much, chopping down the tree, you would just fall apart emotionally. You wouldn't be able to do it. So you have to condition the body through your own internal psychopharmacology to go be numb. So you can be this numb, stoic man walking around chopping these trees down. Whereas these men's wives were like, this is terrible, we're going to have to do something. So this is an example of how women who are more in touch with their body and more in touch with their heart and more in touch with Gaia are able to see and feel into these situations and make changes, and they save the trees. So that's an example where lack of male vulnerability is creating the environmental collapse in the name of economic growth and prosperity and abundance, and also providing for the family unit and everything like that. So men are conditioned to be like this. So if vulnerability is the willingness to show up and let ourselves be seen, shame gets in the way. How can we be authentically known when we are paralyzed with fear about what people might see? It's a book about vulnerability called Daring Greatly by Brené Brown. Okay? Male vulnerability is seriously not promoted in our culture at all. And it's pretty obvious to everyone how that's happened. And we're going to go through some of these reasons. So, fundamental Christianity, pubs, rugby, and the hard land. So, again, we have Christianity, which supports this monotheistic, pro kind of male leadership, men are in charge, men are calling the shots. We have that affecting us, and there's a lot of different, religious charge pushing men to basically not feel and be in control. Pubs and rugby. There's a full push in our culture to really, for men to not really express themselves, to do things, to express themselves through playing sports or drinking, this sort of thing. And it's like, it's really serious in the sense that a lot of young guys, they're growing up, and they, when they feel emotion, they're basically battered down by their peers or their leaders, especially in things like sports and in school. So we're systematically taught not to be emotional and to bottle it all up forever. Okay, and this can create a lot of illness. This is like a serious thing. And this is this whole culture, this whole sporting nationalist culture, and this is really obvious stuff, really. The hard land. So particularly Australia and New Zealand, the people who came here, the sort of colonial tops, the people from Europe in particular that we're talking about here, it was a really harsh place to come and live. Australia and New Zealand were, you had to become really hard to be able to deal with it and to survive. And we are still suffering from now that it's not hard, but we're still suffering from the epigenetic effects in our DNA of just being firm and solid in our masculinity and not able to basically go into our vulnerability or into our emotions. Now, one really serious thing happening with male vulnerability is men open up and men become more sensitive and able to express their emotions, how they're feeling, and process their past and heal. Often, now we can notice this in ourselves as guys, is as well, when we're going through this process, is male disgust at other men's vulnerability. So you're constantly shunned for being emotional, for expressing yourself. Basically, vulnerability is emotional truth. Not being vulnerable is emotional deceit. You're just denying how you feel to basically follow the status quo. So it's basically just coming to truth how you're feeling with your partner, with friends, or whatever's going on with yourself, and allowing emotions to have free-flowing energy through your body to express yourself like this. Okay? So we've really got to watch this in ourselves as well. The way that if someone else is being vulnerable and also applauding, okay, and helping people to heal in this way, as opposed to shunning them, even just emotionally feeling uncomfortable at someone's going to affect them and make it worse. So it's about kind of looking at what makes us feel uncomfortable and assessing ourselves, going, oh, that makes me feel uncomfortable. If someone else is being vulnerable and it makes you feel disgusted, you need to look at why you're feeling that way. And usually that sort of psychiatric heresy from you towards someone else is coming from the fact that you don't know how to do that, and you feel essentially jealous and confused about how that person's able to process emotions. And you'd rather they weren't, so you can relax and feel more comfortable about yourself.